Good morning. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for April 2nd, 2025. My name is Roger Kiesel, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. The Planning Hearing Officer meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire. iOS and Android devices using a free app called Cablecast, choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. We have actually three cases at two addresses involving discretionary permits this morning. The hearings will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application or request. Next, I will read reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. Third, the case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to present their case, stating both their name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time period. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be called to give comments within a 3-minute time period. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to the testimony given by the preceding speakers with a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will then be closed and case taken under submission. Findings. If the findings present in the application and at the hearing meet the required findings set forth in the municipal code, then the project can either be approved or approved with the conditions. If the findings of facts are not evident, the request will be denied. Decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons responding who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at the hearing or by submitting written responses and having provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Appeals. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must file using the city's online permit portal. For additional information regarding the appeal process and submittal, contact the case planner. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices which were mailed to property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question and placed in the local newspaper. I would like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the Planning Commission or Planning Hearing Officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. All right, let's begin the agenda. The first item on the agenda is located at 723 Sonora Avenue. It's a new restaurant called Maze. The project description is that the applicant is requesting a parking reduction permit to allow a change of use from warehouse to a full-service restaurant for a 12,208 square foot building in the IND Industrial District, without providing the 110 additional parking spaces required by the Glendale Municipal Code, and to rely fully on street parking to accommodate the parking need. The second application related is an administrative use permit for the sale, service, and consumption of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption at the new proposed full-service restaurant. Let me go over the comments that staff received from other departments regarding this case. So from the mobility section of the Community Development Department, staff reviewed the project and the VMT analysis and had no comments. The Public Works Traffic section, staff reviewed the project and the transportation impact assessment and commented that the city will monitor the project's use of left turn movements into the site, and if no negative traffic impacts are identified, the city will require a if negative traffic impacts are identified, the city will require a no left turn sign on the subject site. An additional comment indicated that a valet permit is required for use of valet on-street parking, and that if it is determined that insufficient parking is available for the project, the applicant will be required to obtain off-street parking. From the police department, the subject census tract allows for 6 on-sale establishments, and 14 currently exist. The crime statistics for the subject's census tract are 20% above the citywide average, and they are proposing standard conditions of approval, which they request for many other similar uses. Glendale Water and Power provide backflow prevention devices, electrical service information, etc. Building Division had standard comments typically issued for most projects, including demonstrating accessible parking stalls, complying with the American Disability Act, and demonstrating sufficient egress from the building. The Neighborhood Services Code Compliance section relayed that there have been no recent code compliance cases at this address. I don't have any other letters or communications from nearby businesses or residents. Ms. Pruitt, did we receive anything?
We did not.
Okay. So I will turn it over to you to make that brief overview of the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Good morning, and good morning, members of the public. My name is Cassandra Pruitt. I'm the case planner for this project. The project proposal is to change the use of the 12,000 square foot commercial office building, or commercial building, not an office building, from a warehouse use to a full-service restaurant without providing the additional 110 parking spaces that are required, which requires a parking reduction permit. The project also includes alcohol sales, service, and consumption for the new restaurant, which requires an administrative use permit. The site is located in West Glendale in the industrial zone that runs along San Fernando Road north of the 134 freeway. The site is surrounded on all sides by one-story commercial buildings in the industrial zone. The project site features 4 on-site parking spaces with access to the alley at the rear. The applicant hired a registered engineer to prepare a parking study evaluating the availability of on-street parking within walking distance to the project, including the subject block along Sonora, portions of Flower Street, and Grand Central Avenue. The parking study found that there were 170 parking spaces available to meet the project's parking needs during the anticipated peak hours of the business operations. Requests for comments were sent to numerous city departments to check for traffic and transportation issues, code compliance or police reports, and required code standards, as you just summarized with all the comments. No significant comments were received, and recommended conditions of approval have been incorporated into the staff report. So based on all of that, the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act as an existing facility, where the project does not involve cumulative or unusual circumstances which would result in a significant environmental impact. A parking reduction permit has 3 required findings of fact, which have been demonstrated in the staff report. The first is that the parking need for the proposed use is not as great as for similar land uses, or that the required parking is greater than what is needed by the land use. This has been shown to be true for numerous reasons as detailed in the staff report, including but not limited to the parking study showing the availability of 170 parking spaces, there being public transit nearby, including a Beeline bus and a Metro bus that patrons may use instead of driving. There's a dedicated bicycle lane that may be used instead of driving immediately adjacent to the property. The parking study also outlined that there's an expected 20% of patrons that may use rideshare services, and some orders may be made by food delivery service, which would result in faster parking turnover. The second finding is that the intent of the parking regulations is met. And the intent of the parking regulations is that suitable off-street parking is provided that would lessen traffic congestion. And because there's ample parking street available, no traffic congestion is expected to occur. The third finding is that sufficient parking would be provided for the use. Again, that parking study shows that there's sufficient street parking and that the actual parking needed would be less than what is required by code. I'll now quickly summarize the required findings of fact for the administrative use permit and how those findings have been shown to be met. The first finding is that the proposed use is consistent with the general plan. The general plan land use element designates the site as industrial, where the service and consumption and sale of alcohol is appropriate to the surrounding commercial uses and the neighborhood. The project also complies with other elements of the general plan, including the noise element, housing element, recreation element, et cetera, as outlined further in the staff report. The second finding is that the use will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, welfare, or the environment. The suggested limit for alcohol establishments in the subject census tract is 6, whereas the census tract has 14, not including the subject restaurant's request. And the crime rate is 20% above the citywide average. However, it is common for census tracts to have more than the suggested number of alcohol establishments. Further, the sale of alcohol with a full-service restaurant is not typically associated with public drunkenness or other alcohol-related crimes per the police department. And a list of recommended conditions of approval are included in the staff report, which will prevent potential negative impacts to the community. The third finding is that the use would not conflict with surrounding uses, which is the case since the neighborhood is industrial. There are no identified sensitive land uses of daycare facilities, public parks, libraries, or hospitals in the immediate neighborhood, except for one small park, the Griffith Manor Park. However, it is not anticipated that negative impacts would occur based on the applicant's request for alcohol use at a full-service restaurant. And as I mentioned, the recommended conditions of approval will prevent potential negative impacts. The fourth finding is that there are sufficient public and private facilities, such as utilities, parking, and street traffic circulation, which is the case assuming that the parking reduction permit is approved. Based on the information just presented, the staff recommendation is to approve with conditions, with standard conditions generally imposed on most projects to ensure the proposed use conforms to expectations over time. And a few additional conditions have been recommended, including that the approved use is a full-service restaurant, not a banquet hall, because a banquet hall would require additional parking and further analysis. The hours of operation are limited to the hours that have been analyzed in the parking study. For any valet service operated on the street, a valet permit must be obtained. And 6 months after the business begins operating, a new traffic study will be conducted, and if the parking is impacted on the street, then off-street parking will be obtained. Also, alley access for the neighbors shall be fully maintained, and the restaurant operations must remain within the building and are not to extend to the outside of the building. That concludes my presentation of the summary of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call up the applicants to make a presentation, go over the findings. You've got a 15-minute time limit. Can you set the timer? Thanks.
Good morning, Mr. Kiesel and city staff. My name is Rodney Kahn, and my offices are located here in the city of Glendale. We are proposing to establish a new full-service restaurant, Maze, in an area of the city that desperately needs more restaurants. There's very few restaurants in that area, with quite a population to serve. There are two applications before you today. One is the parking reduction. The second is the administrative use for alcohol sales. And we agree with city staff that the required findings of fact can be made with specific conditions to approve our requests. I'd like to start off my presentation discussing the AUP for alcohol first, and then we'll move into the parking reduction where we have our traffic engineer to assist us as well. The subject building, as Ms. Pruitt pointed out, is a 12,208 square foot building located on Sonora between Flower Street and Grand Central. It's in the industrial area of our city. So the surrounding land uses are industrial and commercial, and to the southwest, we have a large campus that the Walt Disney Company has in that area. The current use of the site is for office, warehouse, and display for plumbing and fire supply. The restaurant itself is a full-service restaurant, a family-style restaurant. The hours of operation are from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch and 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. for dinner daily. We are proposing this application to sell, serve, and consume alcohol in conjunction with food service. When I say alcohol, it's beer, wine, and distilled spirits, just like many full-service restaurants offer throughout the city. Our architect has provided tenant improvement plans. I don't know if you could pull up, Cassandra, the ground floor plan. As she's doing that, we've proposing upgrades to the interior. And so as you'll see on the ground floor, to the right side, if you will, or north, is the entry off of Sonora. And there's a lobby. As you enter the restaurant, you see all the seating area. You see restrooms to the north or right, and then you see a bar area. To the very back, you'll see the back of house, if you will, where there's the kitchen, walk-in cooler and storage area. And then on the second floor, we have some additional seating area. There's a couple private rooms for private dining, and then we also have a restroom and administrative offices as well. So that's the way the building lays out. On the exterior of the building, there'll be some improvements in terms of painting and some signage, but in general, we are adding no square footage. The exact building square footage is the same as it currently is. There is also access, just to be shown, from both Sonora. So there is a driveway along Sonora. You'll see there it's about 12 foot 6 inches in width that leads back to a few parking spaces, but there's also access to the site from the alley as well. I'll briefly touch on some findings because I thought Ms. Pruitt did an excellent job, so I don't want to repeat what she already has said. Roughly in terms of the administrative use permit, the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan. A full-service restaurant is a permitted use in this zone. The sale, service, and consumption of alcoholic beverages is compatible with the permitted uses. The circulation element identifies Sonora as a community collector, which can adequately handle any traffic circulation. The other elements, such as open space, recreation, noise, are not impacted. The second item, the use and its associated structures will not be detrimental. It was already brought out about the conditions of approval that are being attached that will dissuade any type of activities that could be real or perceived to be detrimental. Also, the police department has very specific conditions, as well as alcoholic beverage control does as well. The third, the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses. I mentioned that in our area, it's mainly industrial. So it's zoned industrial, even for properties that aren't used as industrial. So you have quite a mix of commercial land uses. As Ms. Pruitt pointed out, we also have a park that's really about 1.5 blocks to 2 blocks away from the site. So there wouldn't be any negative impact whatsoever to any sensitive land uses such as churches, daycare facilities, libraries, or hospitals in the immediate area. And then the last item related to this application has to do with adequate public and private facilities. So there's no changes, as I mentioned, to the site itself, the parking, et cetera. Many of the utilities are already provided to the site. There may be some minor upgrades as it relates to electrical, maybe some water, things like that related to the restaurant type use, but in general, all the utilities already currently exist. For this application, there were 17 conditions of approval that were listed, and we will agree to comply with all of them. So I'll conclude my remarks on this application. Unless you have any questions, I'll move on to the next application.
I don't have any specific questions related to the AUP.
Perfect, thank you. So the second application as it relates to the parking reduction permit, and that was pointed out by Ms. Pruitt. A few things. One, I want to emphasize, we did extensive parking analysis, and Mr. Bogdanian, who's our traffic engineer, can elaborate on that. We did VMT analysis. We did transportation impact assessment. We did parking analysis. John will work closely with your traffic department on all of these different items. And we didn't do one survey, we did a series of surveys to illustrate that the parking exists on street in that area without impacting the other businesses that are nearby. That was the conclusion after a substantial amount of analysis, that there are about 170, as pointed out, vacant on-street parking in close proximity within a quarter mile of our site that is available, that could easily be used for parking and for customers and patrons to walk from and to in a comfortable manner. The findings as it relates to the parking reduction permit. I illustrated, or I talked about the first finding of fact, that the land use is not as great as for similar land uses. This restaurant is an industrial area. The industrial areas, the hours of operation for the industrial areas predominantly are Monday through Friday during the business day. So we think of something between 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., or 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our restaurant is open at lunch for a short period of time. It's a couple hours. We think we'll be able to capture, as was pointed out, in many different manners, but especially from some of the businesses, such as the Walt Disney Company, that has many employees in that immediate area, some of their business for lunch. And they would be walking over as opposed to driving over. And in the evenings and on the weekends, when we are the busiest, all the other businesses in the adjacent area are actually closed. So we're very complementary as in terms of the hours of operation. The second finding for the parking reduction relates to the intent of the parking regulations. And the intent of the parking regulations is to protect the public safety by lessening traffic congestion. As was pointed out, and very specific, is there are adequate parking off-site, on-street, and we are doing an analysis 6 months later that will specifically show that, and if that's not the case, then we would be required to obtain parking from adjacent areas that are permissive, that would be on their site, off of our site, but off of the street. So there is a safety valve involved. And the last finding is that sufficient parking would be provided to serve the use. We've shown that and illustrated that in our parking analysis, as was pointed out, and we have Mr. Bogdanian who can elaborate on what his analysis included and how extensive. Once again, this application has a series of conditions. Also, it looks like to be about the same number of conditions, which is 17, some of them slightly different than the other ones, but we would agree to comply with all of those conditions. I will conclude my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Sure. Does Mr. Bogdanian have a presentation or? Okay, so, because some of my questions will probably be directed to you. Sure. Okay, all right. Okay, so a couple things.
Sure.
How will the proposed restaurant operate? Can you just kind of walk me through, you know, can I make a reservation? Do I just show up at the door and just walk me through what I'm going to see, how the restaurant works?
Sure. So typically, like any other restaurant, one, we need to first get established and kind of show that. There will be reservations. There will also be walk-in. So it'll be really both. I'm assuming once it gets established, and if it's busy like we hope it is, then it will probably predominantly be by reservation. That's the answer to that question. In terms of the way it would operate like just any other restaurant would. So you would have, obviously you have some deliveries for the food, and you would also have a number of employees, and we have some area for them to be able to upstairs, to have changing area, to be able to have a break room, if you will, with the office or offices upstairs. And then in terms of anything else, it would operate just like any other restaurant, you would think.
Because I noticed actually, this is kind of a follow-up question. Sure. I noticed in both the floor plans, there's a stage, which isn't a typical restaurant sort of operation.
Sure. So if we have any type of entertainment, whether it be someone, a small quartet playing, or if there's going to be any other type of activity, if it's entertainment related, we would have to get a special permit from the city of Glendale to be able to do that. And I think that's also listed as conditions of approval, if that's correct, that anytime we have some type of extra activities, if you will, there are special permits that need to be obtained, and we would obtain them.
I think that is a typical
I think I'm looking
condition
through
of
my,
approval.
Yeah, so for instance, I think it's under the AUP, and it mentions that if there's, for instance, if there's dancing, there needs to be a special dance permit, which is condition number 14. Condition number 15, if there's live entertainment, like I mentioned, there's going to be any of that, a live entertainment permit is required. And then it also lists in that condition specific activities that are not allowed, whether you have a permit or not. And once again, that's not our purpose, to do those types of activities that aren't allowed. So if we did have something like that, where the stage is being used for performance, then we would get a live entertainment permit.
Just following up on that, the floor plan.
Sure.
In reviewing the submitted material last night, I noticed that there were two different floor plans.
Okay.
One of them was shown on on the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm wondering which one is accurate, and there's some discrepancies in what looks like the proportions of the building.
Yeah.
So, if you want to.
Sure.
This is the one that was shown on the PowerPoint. This was included in, and you can step back. In the, I want to say the traffic analysis. And then if you look at it closely, it looks like the proportions of the northern portion of the building are a little bit off.
This is the latest one? Mr. Kiesel, so I get it on record, I was just speaking with Aris, our architect on this project. He said that figure 1, and this one is the correct. So this one, he said is.
Okay.
This one is the old one.
Okay, all right. And I guess, so if figure 1 is the correct one, do you see the proportion
Yeah, I
being a
see
little
it.
different?
I see the proportion a little different. I actually see the restaurant smaller, if that's drawn accurately.
Well, that could be.
Right.
That
So-
could be.
So I think that's the correct one, because if you also notice the existing site plan, if you will,
Yeah,
it reflects more of the figure 1 that we showed.
sort of that shape more?
Yeah, because if you notice, on the existing site plan, if you will, there's a 12-foot, 6-inch driveway. And
Okay.
when you look at this other plan, let's call it, the plan that was shown originally is an older plan. It doesn't show like the width of that driveway. It doesn't show that proportions. I think what happened is as the architect has evolved this project, and there's
Okay.
been changes and discussions and things like that, that's where there's some discrepancies. But the one that was identified as the most accurate is the one that's in front of you as figure 1.
All right.
I'm sorry to interrupt, I just want to comment that the figure 1 in the traffic study is the older plan. This other plan is the latest, newest one that the architect has provided.
Okay, so we've got two people saying two different things.
Let's figure this out then.
Okay, all right.
The plans that are not in figure 1 is the exhibit that's the plans for the project, and those were sent to me by the architect shortly before it was posted online, so.
Okay.
You can come up.
All I can say is that one that you're looking at is the latest plan. What we can
Well, I'm
do-
looking at both of them.
this-
This is the latest.
Yes.
Okay.
What we can do is we can confirm that if we need to later.
Well, and if Ms. Pruitt had something, they probably wanted him to speak into the microphone.
Okay.
And if Ms. Pruitt has something different, that's our fault, that we didn't send her the correct one.
All right. And so, this is the correct floor plan with the correct table arrangement, staircase, bar, et cetera.
Right, and we'll confirm that as well, and we'll solidify that with Ms. Pruitt as well.
Okay, all right. I'm going to try to sort of do this in a logical order. It looked like on the submitted site plan that the four parking spaces were not entirely on the subject site. And it may just be because how they were dimensioned. Can you confirm that they're entirely on the site? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying too, the way that the plan has been drawn, but they are on our site.
Entirely.
Yeah, they're not on the neighbor's site or adjacent.
Okay.
They're on our site, but I see what you're saying because the length of the dimensions show them crossing that hatched area.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. The case is they're on our property.
Okay.
And in fact, if you go to, let me see, if you go to your staff report, let me see if it's in there. There's a, I'm going to call it a Google image, or maybe it doesn't show it there. I thought it did, but maybe it doesn't. Or maybe we
Yeah,
have
it's a
something.
photo.
It's more of a photo that shows it. But the answer to your question is yes, it's on our site
Okay.
entirely. And there's 4 spaces back there.
And, I'm sorry, the way they're oriented, it looks like really they can only be accessed from the alley and then exit onto Sonora.
Yeah, they're very old spaces. They were striped during an era where I don't even know what the parking requirement was for stall width, length, backup, et cetera. So they've just been maintained over decades. So that's why the configuration is what the configuration is.
Okay. So the closing hours proposed are 2 a.m. And you also mentioned in your presentation it's a family-style restaurant. Is there a reason? I mean, 2 a.m. seems pretty late.
I think that the reason that we're doing 2 a.m. is because it gives us the option to go that late. I think the likelihood is it will probably not be going that late, but it gives us that option out there to be able to have the most flexibility for the hours.
Okay. Are there residential uses in the area at all? Or how close is the closest?
So there are, as I mentioned as part of my presentation, it's predominantly industrial. And there's also commercial with the industrial. There's also some scattered residential buildings in the industrial zone. So
Right.
some of them are used for they're industrial and commercial uses in a residential building that was originally residential. And there is some that are residential that are used for residential purposes. And those are typically, if you pull up the location area, it's between the park and the site. And they're very scattered in terms of the residential.
Can we try that? It's probably the larger scale. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so that second map to the right, I'm assuming the white, or the red dot is
Yeah, so.
the
so-
site, and
right,
that
so-
green is the park?
Yeah, so all along Sonora, it's commercial.
Yeah.
Obviously, to the south, that's where the Walt Disney Company is and their big, Glendale Creative Campus area. To the east, we have offices, we have some warehouse stuff. To the west, we have a series of warehouse, we have some auto repair, we have some other things that span that whole area. And so to the north, if you will, is where you get, if you see in there, there's some small lots that are kind of scattered.
Okay.
You get a mix of land uses in there. A few of them are residential, being used as residential in the industrial zone.
Okay. How far is the Disney campus from the restaurant?
Across the street.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
directly across the street.
All right.
You have on Sonora, so Disney, the Walt Disney Company, they own, as you know, several acres there. So if you go down Flower Street, and Sonora, you have that whole campus where it says Airway, Grand Central, Flower. That's all where the Walt Disney Company is. If you go further down, Circle 7, that's where ABC 7 is. There's a series of, GWP has their main plant down here as well. DreamWorks is down there. There's a whole multitude of entertainment and kind of government utility down there. Yeah.
Okay. How many people can the restaurant accommodate?
I would have to defer to our architect in terms of the assembly. I think it's, if I counted chairs, it would be different than what the maximum capacity allowed is. I think we have a series of about, I want to say about 100 or so as it relates to chairs and seating and things like that. And then you have a few more upstairs. It gives you kind of a ballpark.
So 100 plus?
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
I think, though, if you look at the building code and fire codes, they probably allow you more. But the reality is the seats, the number of seats is going to dictate the number of people.
So this latest plan, where the, well, I guess it's mostly tables and banquettes and that, is not going to be like it's shown on these plans, because it looks like there's more than 100 seats just on the first floor. You may come up, Mr. Artunian.
Hi again. So
Hello.
based on the occupant load, based on the building code, when we go through plan check,
Yeah.
will be most probably 30 square foot per occupant. If you do the math, it's something like 210 occupants allowed by the fire and life safety code. So the seating does not accommodate that entire number, but it's close, and it may not be 100% that layout, but the restaurant use will not, most probably not maximize that occupant load. But in any case, there will be a maximum, and there will be a sign required to be posted there
Okay.
by the fire department.
So basically, you're saying you suspect that through fire and building safety, the occupant load would be roughly 210,
Yes.
210 people. But the actual capacity of the restaurant, meaning the number of seats and banquettes and all that, likely will be less.
Most likely it will be less, unless it's really popular, then they'll just have to comply with whatever the fire department maximum occupant
Okay.
load is.
All right. Confirming again, even though I know you've mentioned it, that you all don't have any concerns with the conditions? The proposed conditions?
No, we don't have concerns with the proposed conditions. We had read through them together collectively, made sure that we did not. So, no, we don't have concerns with the conditions.
Okay. So I think it was what was contained in the staff report, and it was either in the parking or the traffic analysis. Let me see. I can't tell from the staff report. So, you mentioned 3 specific businesses. Is there a reason why you called those out as opposed to just listing all the businesses in the area?
No, I think there was originally some discussion about looking at different businesses off-site to see if there was off-site parking that we could secure if we needed to. And so some of that was that. The other thing we're also looking at, and I think it's Exhibit 7, if you will, from our exhibits, and it gave the hours of operation for businesses surrounding us. And that was very specific to show, how our business, when I said our business is complementary to other businesses in the area, it's not just me saying it, right? So we documented when those businesses were open, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Are some open on Saturday? Are they closed on Saturday and Sunday? And there was a list of, I think, everywhere from Disney television animation. So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different businesses that we listed. And then that way you could see those are the adjacent businesses and buildings.
Okay.
To be able to say.
So
if
they were
we're
highlighted because they were adjacent, not
just random.
random, or not because they told the story more accurately or to your favor.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Let me try looking at that, or for that.
I can hand you mine.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay. So
it was to illustrate our point.
all right.
And so the adjacent businesses and the way they operate in their hours of operation.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. Oh, there's more on this side. Okay. Thanks. One of the findings listed customers coming by lift or bike, walking, bus. I mean, how would this restaurant be any different from any other restaurant in terms of a certain percentage of their customers arriving to this restaurant other than by their own automobiles?
So that was some of the bullet points that were highlighted in our traffic engineers analysis. So I would defer to Jono,
Okay.
if that's okay to answer that question.
Sure. Let's see if there's anything else.
Anything else for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
In response to the question, this will be no difference than any other restaurant. The trend with restaurants, especially restaurants that serve alcoholic beverages, is that a large percent of their customers, they do use ride-sharing services like Lyft and Uber to go to restaurants and then come back. And our experience with valet operators, they say that there's a good more than 20% of the customers who are arriving, although valet type services are being provided, are using those ride sharing services. So this restaurant would probably be no different. The only thing I would suggest, I would also add, is that because of its location near an industrial area where you have major office buildings such as Disney, potentially a lot of people for lunch hours may just walk to the restaurant rather than, drive there, which is another good thing, instead of actually parking vehicles or moving their vehicles at dinner time. Potentially, if they're going to dinner, they can do the same thing while they're parking at the parking structures, because there's a lot of parking available around that area. So overall, I think that will even reduce the demand for parking, because people will be dropped off and picked up.
So, so for the most part, you're saying this restaurant will, the customers of this restaurant will arrive and depart in a similar manner than most other restaurants, with the caveat of its location near some big employers, that sort of thing. So, so it's not necessarily this restaurant won't generate less traffic than any other restaurant. It sounds to me like what you're arguing to make that finding is that maybe our parking calculations for restaurants for the city may be outdated.
Definitely.
Okay.
They're outdated because of, you can see the demand is much less, in terms of parking demand is much less, because people are using those other services, which are more convenient and safer,
Okay.
in other words.
All right. Can you actually, since you did both the traffic and the parking analysis, can you sort of just summarize what you studied for each and the conclusions of each?
Sure. In terms of the parking, to begin with, we did survey Sonora, we did survey Flower Street, Grand Central. During the operating hours of the restaurants, originally during the week. And then we also, at the request of staff, we also looked at Saturday and Sunday, because potentially the restaurant is also open on those days. What we found is almost Saturday, Sunday, the entire parking on Flowers, Sonora, and Grand Central was vacant. All the on-street parkings were available. So in other words, even if chances are, if you provided the valet parking, a customer coming to the restaurant, if they see there's available parking on the street, they're just going to park there, which is very typical, natural for people to do so, rather than park their car. Now, at night might be different. If the restaurant's providing valet operation, then some customers will, if they want to, use valet operation, they can use the valet operation. During the weekdays, also we find maximum, it was about 19% of the parking spaces on Sonora were occupied, and most of them that occurred up to about 6 o'clock, when still some of the adjacent businesses are in operation. There's a body shop next door that some of their employees park on the street. or some of their customers come in to pick up vehicles and they park on the street. So majority of the parking spaces also after 7 p.m. till about 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. if the restaurant is open at that late will be available on street. Okay. And then with respect to traffic, the city traffic engineering asked us to analyze intersection of Sonora and Flower and Grand Central, which is a T intersection. We did a traffic analysis based on the restaurant's trip generation as approved by the city's traffic engineer, and we did not find any impact at the intersection. The only thing that the staff was concerned about was the northbound left turn into the project driveway in case that becomes an issue, primarily in the afternoon because the traffic is heavier at between 4:30 to 6 o'clock because of the industrial uses over there or the offices that are there. In case that becomes an issue, then they would recommend that the left turns be restricted. So left turns can be made at the Grand Central via U-turn. So we looked at that, we did a delay analysis, and staff was traffic engineering was comfortable with that analysis, with that caveat of having that condition in case it becomes a problem.
Okay. So I may ask you to repeat that again a little bit. Is that restricting no left turns from the site onto Sonora?
No,
No,
it will be
okay.
restricting left turns from Sonora into the site. If you're going up
Okay.
Sonora from Flower,
Okay.
in order to make a left turn, that would be their concern, just in case the traffic going in the opposite direction is heavy and there's not enough gaps, so they were concerned about that traffic backing into Flower, which we did some delay analysis and we did not find that occurring. Right now, there's enough gaps in the traffic for making that left turn. However, at some point, the city, like any other driveway in the city, if that becomes a safety issue, they can restrict left turns, mostly inbound.
Can you bring up the site plan again? Because I mean, with 4 on-site spaces, there are not going to be many people turning left from Sonora into the site.
That's correct.
And the spaces, according to your site plan, are oriented the wrong way to access them from Sonora.
That's right. That's because
So-
of how it's been there like that. But if you really go to the site, when you look at it, people are parking against the building. So those spaces can be flipped to be, if they want to
Okay.
do that. They can put it in the direction where when you enter from Sonora, you'll be able to go in an angle correctly in that direction rather than as if you're coming in from the alley.
Okay, is that what you anticipate doing? I mean, still, there are only 4 spaces.
Yeah, I
But-
don't think it's going to make a difference. The spaces right now, if you look at them on site, it's really faded. It's almost like, I believe right now, when you go out there, whoever is in that building, they park 90-degree against the building. So they don't park against the wall on the north side. So
Okay.
if they're, technically, they can park, that would be a better design, so you will maintain it through movement coming from Sonora and exiting into the alley.
But even at that, there
Still,
are not
it's
that many
few.
spaces.
It's
Okay.
not that many, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure.
I may have another, let me see. I'm gradually checking off the questions. Oh, yes, I do, sorry. So, the street parking, it's just parallel parking against the curb. There are not meters there, I don't think, for the most part. How do you determine how many cars can be parked along the street with kind of such informal, there are no parallel parking lines, there aren't, do you understand what I'm
The
asking?
city used to mark parking spaces on the street, and if it was.
On that street? Oh, or
No,
on
not
those
on that
streets?
street. Typically, the city of Glendale used to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a maintenance issue, so typically, you're, figure about a 20-foot parking space per location. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's like 35 parking spaces. If you take if you take the entire length of Sonora, both sides, there's 35 spaces that are on the east side and the west side. So typically people park, there's some gaps in between. Unless you put in a meter where they actually then mark the spaces, it's, you know, and many streets in Glendale don't have any markings, especially residential. People park as long as they can fit their car between two vehicles. So that didn't seem to be an issue.
I was just curious how you determined that, because it didn't look like there was anything formal.
No,
And so basically, it's just a
typically
math
look
problem.
we typically look at the curb to curb, like from one intersection to the other. We measure the entire length. Then we basically subtracted any driveways that are in between, and you put in about 10 feet of red curb. If there are any red curb, we assume there's going to be no parking next to right to the edge of the driveway. Then we measured it according to that, and we divided it. I think we came up with about 35 spaces on Sonora, and then on Grand Central, there's a lot of parallel parking spaces. We measured almost 450 feet to the east. There's again, same thing on Flower Street. There's a lot of parking spaces. So again, subtracting the driveways or any existing red curbs that are there, that we came up with close to 90 or so something spaces that are available on street.
Okay, but it's basically, you figure about 20.
20 feet
20
is the
feet.
standard
Okay.
for, even if it's metered, you measure, the standard is 20 feet per vehicle, because you have small vehicles, you have SUVs, you have trucks that park in that same space. So that's adequate for a typical vehicle.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then, sorry, one more thing. On page 14 of the, I think it was the traffic, let me see. Parking analysis, it looks like. So you identified, it looks like 5 restaurants, banquet facilities. The report also says lounges. What are, the Brandview Collection is what? Is it a banquet, restaurant?
It's a banquet. Staff asked us to give some examples of comparable restaurants that may have, those are pretty much banquet halls,
They are.
pretty much.
Okay.
Renaissance, Metropole, Brandview Collection, primarily they are banquet halls.
Veranda
Versus-
restaurant?
I'm sorry?
Veranda restaurant
Veranda,
on Artsock
yes. Veranda is a restaurant.
restaurant? Okay.
Yeah. Veranda is
Royal
a-
Palace?
Royal Palace is a banquet hall.
Okay. G Lounge LA?
G Lounge is no longer there, I believe.
Oh, okay.
It's on North Brand.
Yeah.
Okay, that's no longer there.
Okay, okay. And basically, you're saying that these facilities identified operate valet parking in a manner similar to what this restaurant would, how this restaurant would operate valet?
Yeah, staff asked us to give a list of restaurants or banquet facilities that operate valet operations. And we gave those, we looked at those. The only difference is those restaurants use off-street parking facilities, like contract with City of Glendale, for example, to use the Marketplace garage. Or they have their own parking lots that they lease off-street as a, as extra. In other words, they have their own, like Renaissance has its own parking lot, but they lease a parking structure across the street from an office building. In case they have a larger event, they can park over there. but they all have a valet, annual valet permit. They operate, so same thing that this restaurant will be required to get a valet, annual valet parking permit if they want to operate a valet. And they would have to pay for a couple of spaces if it's in the front of restaurant on Sonora. Basically, the operation will be very similar.
I
You know-
guess that was going to be my next question. You mentioned that most of these restaurants, it's valet from their site to private or other off-site parking lots, whereas in this particular situation, at this point, it would be valet on-site to
On-street parking
street
space.
parking.
Yes.
Are there, would the valet have to operate differently because of the street versus parking lot parking? Or are there challenges with this, with what's being proposed here that you don't face in these other situations because they're off private parking?
If I can answer in a different way, I think when you do valet operations in a city parking structure, because I've been operating that in the past, for example, the Brandview Collection, in addition to taking the vehicles from the front of the restaurant, they have to go a couple of blocks. They may have to turn around in a couple of blocks, make left turns at a traffic signal. Then they have to get a special access card from the city, because those parking structures, they all have gates, parking access control. And then they have to be designated in a certain level of the parking structure where they have to park. Could be at the subterranean level or on the roof of the parking structure. So that also complicates things, and it adds more time for taking a car to a parking structure like Marketplace or in street garage that also is used for some of these events. And then they would have to go retrieve it, coming back out, again, making left turns. So it takes longer in those operations to retrieve a car or park a car. Whereas here at this location, if they do valet, the parking spaces are all on Sonora. There's no access control, there's no cards involved, no interaction with the parking gates or the ticket dispenser or the card readers. So it's much easier and quicker. Having said that, in my opinion, potentially people are going to come to the restaurant and they see on-street parking available. People don't like to valet in some cases. They just want to keep their own car. They can park the street and walk across the street or park on the same side and go to the restaurant. So that's the difference. I think it will be simpler operation, maybe a little bit more convenient in some ways, and retrieving the car will be faster.
Is there any downside? Because that makes sense what you're saying. There's less.
The only downside would be the valet operator may have to add more runners, what we call them runners, in other words, the staff that is working. They may have to go a little farther, like if they park the car on Grand Central, it's a longer walk. They can drive there, drop the car, then they have to walk back and then go. But in the pickup times when the customers want to get their car, sometimes it's easier. Two guys drive in the same car and they bring two cars back. There's valet operators are very fast. They know, and the demand is high. They won't add more staff. They know they have 50 guests versus 100 guests. They adjust the staffing levels so that you don't want to have the customer to wait.
Okay. All right. I think that was all of my questions. Thank you. I only have 2 cards for this project. Is there anybody else that wants to speak on this item? Nothing. Nobody. Okay. So, I am, Mr. Khan, I think this was yours? Okay, thanks. So I'm going to close the public hearing on this, take the case under submission, and in about a minute, we'll start the other case.
Just as a note, there were no callers on the line either.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah. I will do that.
This is Dennis. Hey. Hey. Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Kiesel,
What was this for? Okay, okay, all right. You ready? Okay. Okay. Thank you for the patience for giving us a quick break. We'll get back to the second hearing. So the second hearing is located at 3296 Fullbrook Court. It is a variance, variance PVAR dash 003699-2024. The project description is, the applicant is requesting approval to construct a new two-story, 1,716 square foot, single-family residence with an attached two-car garage on a vacant hillside lot in the R1R zone, floor area ratio District 2. There are two variance requests. The applicant is requesting a standards variance to allow development on a 6,274 square foot substandard size lot is the first variance request. The second is a standards variance to allow a driveway length of 15 feet. So let me first go over comments from from other city departments. Let's see, from traffic engineering. They cited landscape area driveway shall be maintained at 30 inches height or less from the roadway elevation for visibility of pedestrians on the street sidewalk. A driveway shall not be less than 15 feet in length. Parked cars on proposed driveway shall not extend into the street or travel way. And then applicant is required to install a towway, no stopping anytime sign from the proposed driveway to the property line at 3155 Fulbrook Court.
Mr. Kiesel, if
Yes.
I may interrupt, on
Sure.
page 3, that office had 2 suggested conditions.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the 2 suggested conditions were restrictions on storing trash bins, construction equipment, et cetera, without first obtaining a street use permit. And then the second suggested condition was approval of a construction traffic control plan for use during project construction. Thanks. From forestry, they identified one oak tree, or one or more, they say, oak trees will be encroached upon. They are suggesting the on-site oak tree because it is not healthy to be removed and be replaced. Looks like building safety has just standard conditions. Although it does note that the proposed building does not seem to have sufficient setback from ascending slope as required per a certain code section. So that will need to be checked. From the land development section of engineering, looks like they're just standard conditions. Same thing with GWP. Fire department and neighborhood services did not have any comments. We did receive a number of letters from, looks like property owners, occupants living in the neighborhood. I'm going to just scan them real quick and then summarize. So from Jeannie Bone. All right. So just a real quick summary. I noticed there's a speaker card for her. She is protesting against building of the home at its presently proposed location, and suggesting that it be built more closely to the Linda Vista Road frontage. That was the gist of this letter, although if I missed something, she can certainly speak about that in her time. I also received a letter of opposition. It's more like petition signed by neighboring residents, urging the city to deny the variance request and preserve the integrity of both the zoning code and our neighborhood. Looks like correspondence from a Matthew Freund, noting that the area is in a very high fire hazard severity zone, and concerned about the impact this project could have on emergency response, evacuation routes, and overall fire safety. More density on an already crowded cul-de-sac raises concerns about access for fire trucks and other emergency responders. Another correspondence with concerns about the project during construction. And then I think some other access concerns as it relates to the project. So, now I'd like to turn to the case planner, Mr. Premin, to make a brief overview of the case.
Good morning, Planning Hearing Officer Kiesel and audience who are present here this morning or watching us live. I'm Shohik Yepremian, the case planner for this project. As indicated, the project address is 3296 Fulbrook Court, case number PVR 003-699-2024. I do have a quick overview of the location of the project, which is in the Chevy Chase neighborhood between Buckingham Road and Linda Vista Road. And as you can see on the zoning map, where the project site is highlighted in red, and you can also see the footprints of the homes in the immediate neighborhood. I do have a map of the aerial view of the subject site as drawn in green color. It is, again, you can see the surrounding houses in this immediate area. Just a brief overview of the proposal. The project is to construct a new two-story, 1,716 square foot single-family house with an attached two-car garage on a vacant 6,274 square foot hillside lot. The subject site is located in R1R, Restricted Residential Zone, FAR District 2. It has a double frontage lot, Fulbrook Court and Linda Vista Road. It was subdivided back in 1926 under tract number 9328. The average current slope of the property is 67.37%. One oak tree is identified located near Fulbrook Court Street frontage. I added two photos of the subject site. One is from the view from Fulbrook Court. You can see the oak tree in that photo, and another photo from Linda Vista direction. We have the existing site plan. As you can see, it's a vacant lot property. The proposed site plan includes the house, single-family house, located closer to Fulbrook Court, with the driveway access from Fulbrook. The remaining of the property will remain undisturbed. I have added the floor plan. The first floor plan is basically the garage and the first floor where there's a living room, dining room, bathroom, and the stairs going down. The lower level includes the bedrooms and an open patio area as well. If I may just briefly the elevation renderings basically shows the conceptual plan of the house. Again, from the street view, you can see the garage and the entry as a one-level elevation from Fulbrook Court. The other elevations include the side elevations, the rear elevations. Here, as you can see, it's a two-story house. And again, this is a conceptual plan. Eventually, if the project is approved, they will have to go through design review for final design approval in terms of mass, materials used, windows, and so forth. DRB has the final design approval authority for this project. The applicant is requesting two variances, two standard variances. One is for lot size. The existing lot size is 6,274 square feet. The code requires minimum 7,500 square feet. The driveway length is, as proposed, is 15 feet, where the code requires 18 feet. For variance applications, the burden of proof is on the applicant, of course, and pursuant to Section 30.43030 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted only if all required findings can be made. And I will like to go over those findings in summary. Number one is strict application of the provision of such ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. The property is zoned R1R, where the minimum lot size for development is 7,500 square feet. The site was subdivided back in 1926 under tract number 9328. This particular subdivision consists of approximately 76 lots along Sussex Court, Buckingham Road, Raleigh Place, Coventry Place, and Fulbrook Court. The lots subdivided at the time varied in lot sizes, and that ranged from 5,060 to 14,000 square feet, since there was no minimum lot sizes for subdivision purposes at the time. This lot is legally subdivided substandard lot. There are no opportunities for this lot to be combined with another vacant lot to comply with the 7,500 square foot minimum lot size for development. Therefore, the only way to develop the site is through the variance approval. In terms of the driveway length, the development is proposing to provide 15-foot driveway length where 18 feet is required. If the project complies with the 18-foot driveway length, the building will be set back 3 feet and therefore would or might increase the building height, which may trigger a height variance. There are several homes on Fulbrook Court which have driveway lengths less than 18 feet. Cars can easily park on the 15-foot driveway, and furthermore, there is a 3-foot distance between the curb and the front property line, which will provide the additional 3 feet, bringing the driveway length to 18 feet from curb to the garage. Number two, there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. The subject site has a dual frontage, Fulbrook Court and Linda Vista Road, with an average current slope of 60%. It has a sharp drop from along the street frontage on Linda Vista Road. Denying the variance request to allow the development of this property with a 1,716 square foot house with 2-car garage would unduly restrict the property owner from reasonable use of the land, which is zoned R1R, single-family residential. The 15-foot driveway length would allow a house construction that is closer to the street on Fulbrook Court. The farther away the house is situated from Fulbrook Court, the height of the building would increase, and therefore it would look more massive. We should also consider our single-family design, hillside design guidelines, which promotes a design that is less massive and compatible with the adjacent properties. Number three, the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. Staff believes that granting the requested variances will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements. The existing lot was legally subdivided in 1926, and therefore to allow the construction of the proposed 1,716 square foot single-family house on a lot less than 7,500 square foot lot, and without providing would not be detrimental. The applicant has submitted sufficient evidence to show that there are several lots within the 500-foot radius that have lots less than 7,500 square feet and driveway length less than 18 feet. And finally, the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Staff believes that the granting of this variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. The requested variances will allow a reasonable use of the existing substandard vacant lot for the development of the proposed single-family residence. Single-family houses are allowed in R1R restricted residential zone. The objective of the driveway length is to ensure sufficient off-street parking is provided on site. Furthermore, the project will be reviewed by the Design Review Board for final design approval before the plan check and building permit process. Therefore, staff recommends approval of standard variances with 11 proposed conditions, which are included in Exhibit 1. We have included the draft findings and the proposed conditions for your review. On a final note, under CEQA, the project is exempt under Class 3 for new construction of single-family house. I did have some additional comments. Therefore, after thorough review of the proposed project details and the evidence that the applicant provided, the staff believes that the project can only be built through the variance approval. Without variance approvals, the lot would not be able to be developed. For the record, public noticing requirements have been met, and the site was posted 10 days before the public hearing. As you have mentioned, also staff routed the project to various departments, and comments were received, as you have read earlier. Also, all the comments from the neighbors were submitted for your review this morning. Before I conclude my presentation, I would like to make some notation about the staff report. The site square footage is 6,274 per plan submitted by the applicant. I know page 4, second paragraph shows a typo, and that should say 6,274. Page 5, also the table shows 6,270 square feet. That's that information is from LA County Assessor's Record, which is always plus or minus approximate number, but we did use the plans submitted as 6,274. And I believe also page 5, first paragraph, last sentence, square footage should say 6,180 and not 6,708. So those were minor corrections in the staff report. I would also like to share that staff discovered that back in 1977, under case number 6400-S, the zoning administrator at the time approved a variance to allow a house to be built on Lot 18 and Lot 19. It seems like there was one application for those two lots at the same time. Lot 18, which is the subject site, was proposed to have 9 feet front setback for the house and 18 feet for the garage. Pretty much same for Lot 19, which received approval at 12.5 feet for the house and 18 feet for the garage. It's not clear from the records why there was one variance application for 2 lots at the time. Even though that approval was about 48 years ago and expired in 1978, there was a one-time expiration date at the time. So the subject site remained undeveloped until today. I thought I should bring this up for the record since it was recently discovered. The project architect is Leo Cheng, who is present here this morning, and he can elaborate on the project. This concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. Okay. Let's start by calling up the project applicant, Leo, is it Chang?
Leo, yes, Leo Chong.
Let me pull up the presentation.
Okay, give us a second.
Okay, you're ready.
Actually, before you start, let me just, I have one question for staff. I just wanted to make sure I heard this right. There is no sidewalk on Fullbrook, which you didn't say, but I thought you said that there's a 3-foot distance between the curb and the property line?
That's correct. I verified that with the project applicant, architect, and according to him, there's a 3-foot
Okay.
from curb to the front property line.
Okay, so from the curb to the
Front property
edge
line.
of the close edge of the garage, there's 18 feet.
That's correct. Yeah, I'll go over that later.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can
okay,
explain.
all right. So you have 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. All right, so good morning, Roger. You're a very thorough man, and staff and members of the many members of the public. So my name is Leo. I'm representing the owners, Nick and Ploy, are my friends, and also the owners for this vacant property here. So before I truly jump into it, I want, it's not working. Oh. Maybe might need to full screen it. Okay, works now. Yeah, all good, cool. So a couple of notes that I want to go over, notes and reminders, because I've been doing a lot of hearings lately and a couple patterns seem to come up. So the first thing is that for this particular hearing, we're primarily just looking at the variances. The project is still subject to design review, building plan check, et cetera. So the approval at this hearing does not mean that we can start construction. Number two, all the relevant city departments have made preliminary reviews of the project and given their approvals for just this hearing in particular. Some have provided their conditions of approval, which we're perfectly fine with. And the big thing is that if there were any huge technical deal breakers, we wouldn't be at this hearing today because planner Shogi would have helped us kill the project already. Number three, building plan check will review the technical elements of this project. That includes, but is not limited to, fire hydrants and access, public works, structures, hydrology, soils, grading, landscape, utilities, etc. So anything that requires engineering, technical reports, that will come later in building plan check, and the well-paid professionals at the city that have decades of experience will, that's their main job. So they'll do a good job. And the last one is that permits are required at every stage of the project. So that includes before the actual construction. So things like traffic mitigation, haul routes, street use, etc. Those generally all require permits, which the relevant city departments will review. Oh, which the relevant city departments will review. Okay, so this here is the subject property that we are all familiar with. This here is the topographic survey done by a licensed surveyor. This here is the same survey, just rotated so it's a little easier to see. You'll see we have the Fullbrook Court at the top and Linda Vista at the bottom. The lot is flatter at the top towards Fullbrook Court, and there's a bit of a sharp cliff that drops off towards Linda Vista. Let's see. Shogi, is it okay if we just make it full size so everything fits on one screen?
best we can, because I know
Yeah, because it's just like some of the words are cut off, and I want to make sure I can get that for everybody.
This is the, well, we'll do our best.
A little bit then, yeah.
Let's just try 90. Did you have further words on there?
I did, yeah. We drop it down to like 70%. I guess it's still a little cut off, but okay, that helps, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, so this is our proposed project here. We are proposing or building along Fullbrook Court. This red line here is the required 15-foot front yard setback. The max floor area is 30% in this area. We are providing 1,716 square feet, which comes out to 27%. The max lot coverage is 40%. We're providing 21%. So any area that's not developed, we are proposing to leave that undisturbed. So variance 1, development of a parcel smaller than 7,500 square feet. Current Glendale zoning code does not allow for the creation of new lots smaller than 7,500 square feet, which means if you have a 1 acre lot, you want to subdivide it, the smallest you can subdivide is 7,500 square feet. Existing non-conforming parcels, which this one is, and many of the parcels in the neighborhood, they existed from prior to standard, and lots that have not already been developed have no provision to be developed because, new lots have to be 7,500. The subject property has no means to expand the lot size. There are no more vacant lots on the immediate sides, and the immediate neighbors have already been developed. Parcels of similar sizes in Glendale and surrounding cities have been developed, regardless of hillside or not. This here is a map of the neighbors within 500 feet. The purple parcels are the vacant lots that have not been developed. These are all substandard. Our subject property is the one in blue, and the red parcels are the substandard properties that have been developed. So you can see that bordering our subject property, the neighbors to the north, south, and west have already been developed, 2 of which actually have smaller lot sizes than our subject property, yet all 3 residences are significantly larger than our proposed project, the largest being 3302, neighbor to the north. They have about 2,800 square feet. Ours, as a reminder, is 1,700. This here is, furthermore, there are a list of other neighbors within the 500 feet that have already been developed as well. You'll see that most of them are actually larger than our proposed 1,700 square feet. And outside of the 500 feet, there are many other neighbors in the neighborhood, in this Chevy Chase neighborhood, that have already been developed as well. So the spirit of the code section is to prevent overbuilding of small parcels by requiring all new parcels to meet 7,500 square feet. The best way to kind of judge the standard of overbuilding would be based on FAR, which would be the floor area ratio. This chart here indicates the floor area ratios of those properties that we just talked about. Our subject property is proposing a 27% floor area ratio. The immediate neighbors to the north, south, and west have 47%, 38%, and 39%. Those are all existing non-conforming, so those were legal when they were built, but they would not be permitted today. The rest of the other neighbors, most of them are all larger than 27% as well. So findings for variance 1. One, there is no avenue to expand the lot size to 7,500 square feet because there are, by virtue of having no vacant lots around. The proposed project will not be unique nor set a precedent in either the immediate nor overall neighborhoods. There are basically just 2 or 3 other parcels, so it wouldn't set a trend. The proposed project is very small and will not be considered overbuilding unless you consider all of the other neighbors to be overbuilt as it is. And lastly, without this variance approval, any proposed project is not possible, which contradicts the city's general plan for R1R zones, which indicates that vacant lots actually are encouraged to be developed. So before I hop into the second variance, I'll just very briefly go over the design of the project here. This is the blown up site plan here. We have a 15-foot front yard setback, 10-foot side yard setbacks. So the northern neighbor actually has a non-conforming 6-foot setback. So there's a total building separation of 16 feet. This is the upper floor plan. We have the garage towards the neighbor side, so privacy for both properties. I'll just skip over this because Shogi did a good job already. Lower floor, private spaces, so bedroom suites are downstairs. This here's the proposed section of the property. So we are planning to cut and fill the property, which means that we're taking soil from the higher areas of the site and filling it to the lower areas of the site. That way you don't have to import or export any soil. Everything is balanced on site. So the overall project massing will ride along the natural grade. This here is the proposed street elevation. This red line here indicates the line of the curb. So the proposed street massing is very minimal because this the driveway slopes downwards to the property. You're only getting a max height of 15 feet from the height of the curb. This here is also the street elevation, but here's a little diagram. The neighbor to the north has a non-conforming setback of 6 feet. We have a proposed side yard setback of 10 feet. So most jurisdictions in SoCal, California in general, they only require 10 feet of separation between single-family homes. We're providing 16 feet. This dashed line here indicates the average annual sunlight angle. That would be about 34 degrees. And if you're to install solar panels, that's the angle that the company would set the panels for, because that would capture the most light. So as you can see that for most of the year, you're getting very minimal daylighting impact on this northern property. In the winter, the angle drops down to about like 50-ish degrees, like 50, 55-ish degrees, and in the summer you get 5 degrees. So you're basically never going to be seeing any daylight impacts. I don't know the actual finished floor elevation of this neighbor, but the slopes are similar. So if you just project our finished floor across there, you'll see this area here will basically never be impacted. This here's the proposed side elevation here, just to show how we have the curb up here, and then the driveway slopes downward. Variance 2, development of a driveway shorter than 18 feet. Glendale zoning code generally does not allow development of a driveway shorter than 18 feet. Our proposed project has a 15-foot driveway setback to reduce the overall building mass. This measurement is taken from the front property line, not from the curb. So back to the site plan here, our garage is situated in this area here. We have a 15-foot setback measured from the front property line. If we were to provide 18 feet, it would push this building further out here, increasing the grading impacts and potentially blocking more of the neighbor's view. So compacting it towards Fullbrook is just better for all parties. Glendale Public Works has commented as a condition, well, not a condition, they have required that the driveway be 15-foot minimum, which we would be meeting here. But the big thing here is that this property line, front property line, is 3 feet in from the edge of the curb. So in practice, this driveway will effectively be 18 feet, meeting the spirit of the code. Let's see here. The actual Fullbrook court is rounded out in this manner here. So this cul-de-sac here, these here are the legal property lines. So in the immediate roundabout, the proposed project would be the only property that provides an 18-foot driveway. The neighbor to the west and the northwest, neither of these properties have 18-foot driveways or even 15-foot driveways. And we're not trying to call out names here, but most of these guys just park in the middle of the cul-de-sac here, which totally understandable. Not many people go up there, but for the purposes of calculating, fire access, street parking, this should not be considered a legal parking configuration. So another map here. These are the neighbors within 500 feet that have substandard driveways. These include the 3 immediate neighbors to the north and to the west and northwest. Outside of 500 feet in this neighborhood, similarly, there are many other properties with substandard driveways. So findings for variance 2. The intention of Glendale's code section is to reduce street parking congestion by ensuring driveways can be used for parking. Our proposed project provides 2 full-sized cover spaces via the garage, and the and the effective 18-foot driveway provides 2 off-street spaces. There will be no effective reduction of off-street parking by granting this variance. The built driveway length meets the spread of the co-section of 18 feet. Granting this variance will reduce the overall project massing and potential view obstruction, construction costs, and would not be a unique feature to the neighborhood. So, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
I have some questions, but I'm wondering whether, let's call up the rest of the speakers first.
Good.
All right. Each speaker's going to have 3 minutes to speak. So the first speaker is Jeannie Bone.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I thought we had 5 minutes, but I will move it as quickly as I possibly can. Thank you. Okay. I'm Jeannie Bone. I'm a homeowner at 3155 Buckingham, which was a little confused with 3155 Fullbrook Court. It's the same house, but the address is really 3155 Buckingham Road. And we are the ones that we feel are the most affected. So I have my presentation.
If you allow us, just, we're running out of, it says it's running out of space on the disk, but we'll try to resolve this shortly so we can get this up and running.
Okay. I'm just going to, I produced this so that I could give you a quick visual view of how we see us being impacted on Fullbrook Court by putting this house on the top of Fullbrook Court as opposed to the bottom of Linda Vista where there are other homes and much, much more room for construction and vehicles and will be much less disturbing and take up a lot less space for people who have to live with this. Okay?
Okay.
So I don't really know how to do this without my pictures.
That's okay. I won't start your time yet.
Okay. All right, won't start my time yet. I think one other thing I think we could take a look at is if we do take, if we are amenable to addressing the Linda Vista access, that there would be no need for a variance for the Fullbrook Court on the driveway. That would, I guess that would maybe comply with other things, but not that. Okay.
I
It's
don't
okay.
know what to do, because we run into I might have to reboot the machine. You may see on the screen, we do get this error that says not enough disk space. I'm hoping that we can clear up some of the memory on the machine.
I brought my computer if you want to use that instead, but I don't know how to hook it. I don't know what your hookup is. It's an Apple computer.
I don't know how to hook it up either, but I think I'd rather go down the route of rebooting the machine. Maybe we can, without messing up the wiring, because I don't
Okay.
know how it's set up here. So if you can just kind of bear with me.
Hearing Officer Kiesel, perhaps you can take the other members' comments until we figure out.
I can do that. There was an order. Do you want to stick to that order? And we can just take a break?
We'd prefer that. Yeah, we'd prefer that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a quick break. Thanks. Real quick.
Real quick, so,
Yeah.
all of the people who are in opposition to this,
You actually
yeah.
come,
with respect, so all of the people who came that are in opposition to this were told that they did have 5 minutes to speak. I know that you set the rules for that, but a lot of us are prepared to speak for just a little bit longer than that 3 minutes. So I wanted to, I was just wondering if we're going to be cut off right at the 3 minutes, or if our speeches go a little bit longer, is that all right?
I wouldn't worry too much about it, but, I need to be fair to the applicant as well, who also has the ability to rebut. So just, be aware of that. I'm not going to cut off the mic, but, also speak efficiently, don't repeat yourselves, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
sure.
So, Mr. Kiesel, would you like to have it 5 minutes? As far as timer, that's all, just to give them the.
Let's do 3 minutes, and then, that will give them some time to okay, I need to
Gotcha. Thank you.
wrap
To
up.
wrap it up. Okay. All right. Again, I'm Jeannie Bone, the owner of, with my husband, 3155 Buckingham Road. We are in the very far south corner of the cul-de-sac, and we will be quite affected. The cul-de-sac is very small. We are feeling that there is no additional room to put anything else, much less construction equipment, into that cul-de-sac, which is already very heavily crowded and very used. There was a reason, I'm sure there was a reason that cul-de-sac, that property has not been developed in 99 years, and now is going to be developed. But it is really actually the last one. If anybody looks around, there is no other property to be developed in that cul-de-sac. And for us, we have serious egress issues in our particular situation because we're at the furthest end. And I won't make you read everything because you'll have this available in your pocket, but we are really concerned about it being a fire trap for us, especially in light of the last fires that we had in January. This is our home from the front on Buckingham Road, and our entrance to our house is actually around the corner. And the stairs on here lead way back there, but it's not accessible to actually use the property for deliveries or doing anything because it's so narrow. This is the stairs. It shows that we have an arrow pointing around that you have to go around to go into Fullbrook Court. It's very confusing, always has been very confusing, still is confusing, but people generally eventually figure it out and have to go through this narrow driveway. If there's a car parked here, there's no way for two-way traffic there. And then this is the north end of Fullbrook Court, where cars normally park, and this is what they normally do there. And there's no extra parking, no extra moving. This is Fullbrook Court from our vantage point in the cul-de-sac, and this is just a random day of deliveries that happen there. And this is our gate. Green Gate is the only entrance and exit to our property for where anybody can come in and service our property. Yes, our cars are out here, but there just really is not very much room. Even if we did move in, there's still no room for anything else.
And that was your garage, I'm assuming, too.
This is our garage
Okay.
going down into the property. This is from our Green Gate taken out there with just a general day of activity that may or may happen on any given day from our Green Gate, my dog. And just a little bit more showing you that there's really no way that two-way traffic, if anybody else comes in there, that anybody can get out very easily when there's cars parked there, which is a normal thing that happens. This is in the evening. And this is just showing you what it looks like for where we are into that only egress from us in and out of that property. And that's showing where the property being developed is going to be. It's not a lot of room. This is just a normal trash day. This is just what we normally do. This is on the other side, just as what we normally do. And there's the lot. This is the lot. You already basically saw, you could play this if you like. We already basically saw the QuickTime. This is a QuickTime movie just showing you the lot, but the other picture was really quite good. I don't have an aerial view like we saw from the other presentation, which was actually very good, but that just gives you an idea of the expanse. Oops. And so the other
So
side.
was that little quick movie, was that the subject site, or is that?
That's the subject site.
Okay, okay.
That was taken from, the only place I could do it, because I don't have an aerial view. I just took it from my neighbor's property, because that's the best way I could see it. Otherwise, I can't really get down into the property and look down on it too well. Anyway, moving along here, this is the property from Linda Vista Road. There's no, you can see there's a car, oops, oh, sorry. Let me go back. Okay, there are, you can see there's two-way traffic here. This is a through street, both directions. There's room for parking on both sides and really not very much traffic. And this is this is right in front of the property, same thing, at the very bottom of the hill. And this is the lot a little bit further away, so I was going to show you in both directions. There's no cars, there's nothing parked on any part of that property. This is the house right next door to the property, and it's built on Linda Vista Road. And this is the one on the other side of the property that's also built on Linda Vista Road. And there's another one to the right of that. So I wanted to show you what it looks like when there's construction in various properties in our neighborhood, in La Cañada and Chevy Chase. It takes a lot of cars to do construction. A lot of people have to come in and do construction. This particular property on Woodley and Flintridge Avenue has had to have signs put in because people, I guess, had to have some parking for their own while there were so many trucks. There were 20 trucks, and that project is almost at the end, and there's still 20 trucks servicing that property on Woodley and Flintridge Avenue. This is Cambridge, also in La Cañada. This one has 10 pieces of 10 autos and trucks servicing this property until it's finished. And they're almost at the end of their construction. And they have another car. This one's on Inverness Drive. They have a tractor, and they also have, they have a tractor, and they also, and they also have a porta potty and all this stuff. And I'm wondering where all this stuff is going to go on Fulbrook Court. I'm just giving you a look. This is a brand new project that's coming up to review, and it's looks like it's on Chevy Knoll and Golf Club on the other side of the canyon, behind the golf club, and it looks like it's going to have plenty of room for development as well. Kensington Road is one that's also almost finished, and they have room for various kinds of parking and vehicles there too, and it also is a through street. This one is another one on Golf Club Drive. It's almost toward finished, and it's a through street. And here's another one on St. Andrews, similar situation. Here's another one on Chevy Chase Drive that you probably are very much familiar with. And it's taking a long time to get through, but it's also on a through street. They were able to put in everything in this area. And anyway, and then it's almost finished, but it's self-contained in the property. And it was built from the bottom also. This one is the one up on Chevy Chase near Emerald Isle, and it's somehow stopped in construction. And but you can see it. I'm going back here. It has plenty of space for staging construction equipment. This one is also on on Linda Vista. It just got finished. It again had room for dealing with construction equipment, and it's still for sale. One consideration we have is the recent fires in Altadena and Pacific Palisades, and the red line changed, and it's much more considered in a fire area. So for us being trapped where we are, could be trapped where we are very, very much aware of how scary it was, and it was scary. People died in these fires, and then now insurance is going to be maybe impossible to get. So there we are, as it was from 2007 to 2011. Here is how the fire map looks right now. And if these variances are granted, we figure it's going to be a nightmare on our cul-de-sac. There's no more room. It's tight. It's not safe. And where one problem is, maybe it's going to be less desirable because all of the street parking that will be taken from the driveway all the way up to our green gate, because they want to put a no parking zone, tow-away zone there. We won't have any place at all to access and have people take care of our home. So the new driveway does not save us parking. It actually makes it worse for us. And then it might become less desirable for those of us who are going to have more parking taken away to sell our home. And our neighbor will lose this view that they have, current, the one that would be built next to. They'll lose that lovely view. And I think a better solution for all concerned and for having less traffic and less chaos would be to build from Linda Vista Road and to free Fullbrook Court for the normal activities that I showed you today. And then there would be no need for that variance, and there'd be no changes to Fullbrook Court. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker is Matthew Freund.
Good morning.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. My name is Matthew Freund, and I live on Fullbrook Court, directly adjacent to the proposed development. I want to begin by stating clearly for the public record that this lot is substandard under R1R zoning, which requires a 7,500 square foot minimum for new homes. This parcel is only 6,274 square feet. The developer was fully aware of this limitation when they purchased the lot and willingly took on the hardship of speculative building. This is not a burden imposed by the city. When we residents of Fullbrook Court purchased and have lived in our homes, we residents of Fullbrook Court have purchased and lived in our homes with the understanding that this lot was unbuildable under R1R standards. In fact, as recently as 2021, Mr. Danny Manasarian of Glendale's Community Development Department told us that a variance would be unlikely on this lot due to the lot size discrepancy. While the city may now cite precedent, that does not erase the fact that this project undermines the intent of the zoning code designed to protect low-density hillside neighborhoods, preserve open space, and ensure safe emergency access. If the city is determined to support this project, then it must at least focus not just on whether the home is built, but where. This lot has dual frontage, and yet the proposed plan places the home at the top of a steep slope squeezed into the dead end of an already overburdened cul-de-sac, rather than at its original address at 3299 Linda Vista Road, which is wider, flatter, and far better suited for construction, parking, emergency access, and trash service. Building on Fullbrook Court in an already identified by city departments as problematic for fire truck access and circulation is not just poor planning, it is negligent when a clearly safer alternative exists. The current plan creates major logistical challenges for our entire street, challenges that go far beyond inconvenience. Fullbrook Court is a narrow, congested, dead-end one-lane cul-de-sac with no driveways for 3 existing homes. It is our only access route. Adding large construction equipment, building materials, contractor vehicles, and ultimately more permanent parked vehicles and traffic will severely compromise our ability to move safely through the street. This is a critical emergency access issue. The city's own report to the planning hearing officer confirms emergency access on Fullbrook Court is already problematic. And as a result of this project, the Department of Public Works Traffic Engineering has required tow-away no stopping anytime signage specifically to preserve space for fire and emergency vehicles. We spoke with Mr. Tommy Chow at Traffic Engineering, who confirmed that this stretch of road running from the south end of the proposed driveway to the Bones residence is too narrow to safely accommodate both parked vehicles and emergency access. Despite this, there's no publicly available plan for construction staging, and in the absence of any such plan, we must assume the obvious. Cranes, drills, construction crews, and materials will be staged in the very area that must remain clear for emergency access. That's not just a logistical oversight, it's reckless. This isn't a theoretical concern. Speak to the firefighters at Fire Station number 23 in Chevy Chase Canyon. They'll tell you, navigating Buckingham Road and Fullbrook Court is already highly challenging for Engine 23. A large construction zone here could block access or trap residents during a wildfire evacuation. And again, this is avoidable. The lot fronts both Fullbrook and Linda Vista. Linda Vista has ample width, parking space on both sides, much quicker access, it's safer, it's easier, it's more functional. It even allows for the developer to build a larger home with fewer constraints. And it's an obvious path forward. If a variance is going to be granted, the city must require that the applicant develop from Linda Vista Road, where the impact on residents and public safety would be dramatically lower. And if the city still insists on allowing development from Fullbrook Court, then at a minimum, it must demand a public enforceable construction management plan that outlines staging, parking, emergency access, and traffic flow before any variance is granted. This is a matter of basic planning integrity and public safety, and the residents of Fulbert Court and Buckingham Road are depending on you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thanks. The next speaker is Priscilla Barnes. Good morning.
I think we've met before.
You know, your face does ring a bell.
Well, yes, but that aside, I thought I'd met you here when I was coming to get a permit or something.
Could be.
Because this is the permit office, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't it that wild party?
Maybe.
I get that a lot, and I'm like, no, I'd be dead if anyway. I think most of what I was supposed to say has already been said, so I'll be really brief, because I'm specifically here to talk about that 15-foot driveway. That actually, when Jeannie's picture showed up here, it kind of looked even bigger with all those trash cans. That cul-de-sac is so small, and there's just not, the 15-foot driveway isn't long enough to fit a standard passenger vehicle. So I don't know what they're talking about. I can't understand. I'd like to further investigate that, how he's saying how he's going to build the house 3 feet from the curb and then start the 15-foot driveway, which will make it 18 feet. You brought up that
Why
point.
don't you continue with what you want to
That's what I'm gonna
say,
say.
and then
Okay, so.
either he can come up or I can.
Okay, I just was, because if that was done to, preserve the integrity of the grade, the building, a shortened driveway still works and won't impact public safety. But as we know that it will, because unless the owners plan to drive only compact cars and pull in perfectly each time, so their car, knocks is against the driveway, and that will never happen. As for from Wednesday evening through Friday morning, it's impossible for any car to park on that cul-de-sac because we all have about 4 cans. And then after, with COVID, you have, Amazon, UPS, you have people, appliances, and we all know our firemen very well. They actually do their push-ups in front of my home every morning. And so we're all very, very conscious of, fire. And we can't, after this fire, even get insurance. So I don't know how our property is, I'm 3109, so our property does go down to Fulbert Court, but it's so narrow that I can't even use it or park there, so I've just kind of given my driveway over to my next door neighbors and their, basketball court. There's absolutely nowhere to park. And it isn't that we're all for regentrification and building, and we'll put up with the noise. We don't mind or care, but we're here to encourage you to put it on Linda Vista, because Linda Vista is bigger, it's larger, it's safer, it won't require fire problems, building problems. I mean, you have this expanse amount of space. We don't know why that it just won't work on Fulbert Court. So I think, and he had mentioned earlier that there was smaller driveways, but they're all grandfathered in. There hasn't been a smaller driveway built in that area for I don't know how long. So it isn't even possible. So I urge you not to compromise public safety, neighborhood functionality, and your own zoning standards just to push through a project that won't fit. I mean, it fails the code, fails logic, it fails us, and we'd like to welcome the neighborhood when they may be building on Vista.
Okay.
I don't think there's more to say, but I think I would just be repeating myself.
Okay.
Did I do the 3 minutes?
Probably a little more, and that's fine. Sure.
Mr. Kiesel, can
Yeah.
you verify her address? I thought I heard 3109.
Yeah, 3109 Buckingham Road. We have a house like Jeannie's where
Thank you. Yeah,
it goes from one end to the other.
just,
Okay.
thank you.
So the next speaker is Cheryl Freund. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kiesel and staff. My name is Cheryl Freund. I live on Fulbrook Court, directly next to the proposed development. I'm here to speak about how the current plan violates the spirit and intent of the R1R zoning code and places unnecessary hardship on the neighbors who already live here. This project would irreversibly change the look and feel of our street. From our windows and yards, we now see canyon ridgelines, tree canopy, and open sky. If this variance is granted, we'll instead be staring at a 2-story exterior wall, right where our all-day southern light and view used to be. Imagine your kitchen, dining room, and primary bathroom going from light-filled spaces with priceless views of the canyon, extending all the way to Flint Peak, to dark rooms facing a wall. The city has stated that denying this variance would impose a hardship on the developer, but what about the very real hardship imposed on us, residents who already live here? What about the loss of views, daylight, and quiet canyon character? What about the strain on parking and access on already overcrowded one-lane cul-de-sac? There is a far more sensible solution. If the city insists on allowing development on this substandard lot, they should require the house be built on the bottom of the slope at its original address of 3299 Linda Vista Road. Linda Vista is wide, accessible, and far better suited for construction, equipment, and fire truck and ambulance access. This alternative is not only safer, but it would dramatically reduce visual and structural impact on all neighbors and preserve the beauty of the canyon from all viewpoints. The Glendale Municipal Code is clear. According to Section 32.11.0400, subsection A, item 2, R1R development must be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of size, scale, massing, and layout. This home fails that standard. It doesn't blend. It looms. The siting eliminates open space and blocks natural light, and the scale is amplified further by its location at the top of the slope, elevating both its physical presence and its visual impact. Section 30.11.040, subsection A, item 3, calls for preservation of prominent natural features. This plan removes a mature oak tree and eliminates our shared view corridor. The slope, the vegetation, the wildlife activity, and the open sky are what makes this site special. None of that is being preserved. And under Section 30.11.040, subsection A, item 4, the code is especially clear. Site plans for development of property on steep slopes shall take into account the visual impact on surrounding properties. Yet the current plan amplifies visual impact. It puts the largest structure on the highest, most exposed part of the lot, right where it affects the most neighbors. Please tell me how blocking the views and the light from 5 windows and multiple rooms takes into account visual impact. While the applicant claims the house is only 1,716 square feet, it also includes a 468 square foot garage and a 468 square foot enclosed patio, spaces that can be converted. This is not a modest development. It's a footprint designed to expand, increasing density and strain on a street that is already over capacity. We also reject the argument that older homes in the area justify this new one. Those homes were built decades ago under different rules. The current code exists to prevent new projects from repeating the mistakes of the past. On a practical level, construction on this steep slope introduces serious risk: hillside destabilization, drainage issues, and even potential street collapse. Has the city conducted or reviewed a comprehensive geotechnical study? If not, how can it assure neighbors that their foundations and properties are safe? If this project is abandoned mid-construction, who's liable for cleanup and damage? The city? The developer? Again, this is all unnecessary. This lot has dual frontage. A build from Linda Vista would preserve light, views, and slope integrity, while also not adding pressure on a narrow, already congested cul-de-sac. It's the obvious and most appropriate location. Fulbrook Court is not a blank slate. It is a hillside street with no room for error. Every structure has exponential consequences. This project doesn't reflect the neighborhood, it disrupts it. Under the code, it shouldn't move forward in its current form. Please uphold the intent of R1R zoning. If the home must be built, require that it be built on Linda Vista, not Fulbrook Court. Our neighborhood deserves thoughtful planning, not forced density. We have all lived here a long time. We are very familiar with the existing constraints of our street. We're pleading with you to choose the reasonable option that puts less hardship on existing residents.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chris Bone.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. In order to speed this along, because I would amplify with the comments that were made from the previous four speakers, I would just add more detail. Most of my detail, but not all, has been submitted already to you. I am very proud to be a resident of Glendale. I think it's one of the most amazing cities in the world, and we've lived in here since 1980 in various spots. But to amplify Matt's comments, yes, we did move up into the Chevy Chase area. We became enamored with it. And we'd also bought in there with the understanding that that lot was unlikely to be, developed because of the zoning changes that were put into place before we moved in for allowing a home there. Now, with the fairness to allowing a home there, I think we are all in support of a house being built down on Linda Vista, where there seems to be apron room on the sides of the street. It's two-way. The cul-de-sacs are already demonstrated by photo evidence of being compacted. And I also want to point out that in the city documents that were for this hearing, it states that the street is identified as a local street, 26 feet wide. Now, I haven't found a 20-foot section there except at the turnaround that was put in there, probably when that road was originally put in before development was occurring. And probably the houses were put down on Buckingham Road and not intended to be on Fulbrook Court, probably, because most of them are down on Linda Vista. And Buckingham Road, where we front, technically, our house was one of the first ones built up there. As far as the cul-de-sac, it is actually not a straight, it's a doubly ended dead-end street, okay? There is no two-way traffic on the street. It's kind of a share space. And then that brings up, because magically, if you took those both ends, it's longer than 150 feet. So were it to be retro-designated a fire access road, or for some such reason by the state for being at the crest of the hill and needed now for new egress considerations, that would be a game changer for the density that's already up there. So these are all things and patterns that suggest that the city is doing everyone a favor by really directing the project to where it can be best accommodated with respect to egress, in light of lessons learned from the Palisades and the Eaton Canyon issues. By the way, when we first moved in, we had a nice view of the 1992 fire that was up on the hillside burning away, and we were here with the moving truck, and there it was burning up above the hill. Then the fire department put it out, but it was a pretty big brush fire at the time. We also had a great view from our front windows of the enormously red sky west of the hillsides out of Chevy Chase Canyon when that was occurring. We saw the DC-10 come in and drop all the water, and we had other experiences with seeing other fires up in the foothills. Now we're all really in a redefined fire zone. It's very difficult to get insurance. Further compactness would probably alter even that in a more stressful way, I would guess. But the other thing I wanted to say is that we don't really know, as a resident, what to expect. And we would like to have some sense of calmness of living up there and not having to absorb any more potential traffic confusion. We have to get down from the hills, okay? Linda Vista is even already lower, but we have to get down from that spot to get out. So even if fire trucks were present, we may not be able to get out with a car because they're not moving and you want them there to protect. But I don't know how we would get out. And I would like to go to sleep at night so I don't have to wake up in the morning and worry about it. At least I think the city's going to make the right decision. It's up to the city to decide. It's not up to the applicant to decide. The wisdom exists in the city. The institutional memory exists with the city. This is a great city, and let the city prevail and do the right thing. Have it, in my opinion, be down at the base of the lot on Linda Vista Road. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And then the final card from John Daly. How are you, Mr. Daly?
How are you, Mr. Kiesel and Missy Premium? I think, first off, everybody's really covered it very well, so I'm not going to be repetitive on certain things. My name is John Daly. I live on Buckingham Place, which is about a block away, sir. I'm an 88-year-old resident of this town. The only reason I say that, although I'm glad to be saying it, and not the other way around, is that I've seen what's happened over the years. I really have, Roger. There's been so many changes. I've been in the canyon for 55 years now. Seen so many changes, the hillside, you name it. I'm just throwing this stuff out. I understand the city's position of having people live. Nobody here is saying they can't live somewhere. But you're taking a place right now, and I think the best way to show it, the way Jeannie showed you those photographs, where they live right now, it's like putting a 5-pound bag of sugar into a 1-pound container. You just can't do it. It's ridiculous. Going into your findings that you had there, you have A, B, C, D. The one that I find a problem with on the findings is C. The people that are having the hardship are these two couples behind me. Those pictures should tell you everything. You know, these folks, you talk about having a 15-foot driveway. Hey, I understand that. And everything in your report, that's where the 2 parking spaces, I believe you say 2 parking spaces. But not everybody's home has 2 cars. Look around, there's 3 and 4 cars. Where are these people gonna go? And then, Lord forbid, if there ever was fire, you never know. Maybe there'll never be one. But who's gonna take that chance? Just for your information, we were all evacuated. I don't know if you're aware of that. We were in that area that was a mandatory evacuation here on the 8th of January. Taking those into considerations, but you know, when you look at the rule, this rule was established for 7,500 feet. Help me out. I think it was in 1986. I'm not sure. The city did that. There was a reason for that.
Yeah, I don't know offhand.
I read that somewhere, so you're going to shoot me dead on that one. But I read it under the planning when I got on the internet the other day. The idea that we're standing right here, and the only reason I'm here is after all these years, even though I know these folks, I played in that, I was only 33 when I bought my home, but I used to be in that area when things were different. There weren't as many cars or what. There's just not enough room there. I know the people at Fire Station 23, even the driver says he has a hell of a time on his truck to come on up. You know, there's only parking on one side of Buckingham, by the way. Mm-hmm. That's the thing, but I'll wind it up. Why we're even here today talking about something that's 100 years old next year, that it was there, and now the city has changed it to 7,500. It's a hardship to the people that are there, only under that number C. That's where I get going on the findings. I looked at your findings, 1, 2. I understand 1 for the expense that's involved in everything. But I just, All I can end it with is certainly I oppose it, I deny it, I don't think it makes it doesn't mean the findings that you placed. I know the city says we want to have sensible and we want to have reasonable housing for it 100%. You mentioned the hillside ordinance, what it's going to do with the view. Well, I think we're past that point on this one. But I just think you should deny it, and I'll let it go at that. Thank you very kindly, sir.
Thank you. All right, Leo, you have some time to rebut.
Mr. Kiesel, how many minutes for the rebuttal?
You know, let's put it at 5, and then if more time is needed, we'll just go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Right, great. So, took some notes here. So a number of the items are actually things that I kind of mentioned in the important notes and reminders that they will be addressed later in regards to, say, like construction traffic mitigation, haul routes, street use, et cetera. But let's see, I'll go through here. So one, I mean, the cul-de-sac, it definitely feels small, but that's oftentimes because people place a lot of cars in there. You know, some of them are not supposed to be there, but that's perfectly cool. We kind of took that into account with the design of this project. It is required per code and, you know, desirably as well, that we have provided this house with 2 full-sized covered parking spaces and an actual driveway that can be used for parking. So as a reminder, most of the parcels in this cul-de-sac cannot park on their driveways. So this project that we're proposing will allow for 4 off-street parking spaces. And, you know, the owners, I know some of the neighbors mentioned that the owners are developers. The owners are not developers. It's a young couple, and I will guarantee you no developer is dumb enough to buy this property to buy and sell. I can guarantee you that. So the owners, they're a young couple. They don't have any kids yet. They are probably planning to at some point in the future. And you know, when we first started this project, you know, I've done a lot of hillside properties. I'm very, very well aware that on the through lot, you know, what the difficulties are. So the reason why we cannot build off of Linda Vista is actually very, very simple. It's due to H/2. So that's a very technical building thing in regards to hillside construction, and it has to do with the slope of the property above the proposed residence below. So that dictates the depth of the foundation and the height of the grading that you can do, including shoring. So, you know, those houses along Linda Vista there, that would be very difficult, if not borderline impossible to build today. Those are existing non-conforming as well. And you know, given that our parcel is a new vacant lot that we're planning to build on, we wouldn't be able to comply with H/2. So that's the reason why we will have to put it on the shallower part of the lot, which is towards the top. So even where it is now, we still have to contend with H/2, which is why we've proposed to cut and fill a portion, the flatter portion of the property. Sorry, I keep thinking that I have diagrams up there, but we've insetted the proposed project into the grade where we're cutting and filling the parcel for a flat pad. That wouldn't be possible with that cliff drop-off off of Linda Vista. Let's see, in regards to construction traffic, I think one neighbor mentioned that they saw like 20 cars for construction. I'd be really impressed. I have never seen that in my life, but that would be awesome. That would be a great contractor. If they can actually get that much manpower. And, you know, showing pictures of 4,500 square foot houses under construction doesn't really apply in this particular case because this house is only 1,700 square feet. In regards to fire standards, this new construction would be, you know, subject to the very high fire hazard severity zone. These include, you know, these are also technical things that we'd have to deal with later in building plan check, but things such as the, you know, roof covering needs to be Class A, the walls need to be 1 hour fire rated, the windows need to be 1 hour fire rated, they'll have to be tempered, et cetera. I can guarantee you none of the houses in that existing cul-de-sac comply with those standards today. Our proposed project will. That's perfectly normal because existing non-conforming houses that were built maybe 5 years ago couldn't be approved today. In regards to view blocking, so the view from down that canyon is actually slightly diagonal. So we did account for that. That's when we're doing projects, the last thing we want to do is intentionally throw a block in front of someone's view. We've already pushed it as far up to Fulbrook Court as reasonably possible. And the view is directed diagonally out kind of southeast down the canyon. I have not been in the neighbor's house. But based off of the window locations, I don't think there would be any kind of impact at all. Perhaps in maybe because if I remember correctly, they have like a 3-story building. Maybe some of the lower floors that get closer to the grade might be impacted slightly, but none of the common spaces above on the second, on the top floor or the floor below it should be impacted, especially given that 16-foot building separation. And then, let's see, yeah, so a number of the other items were actually all covered in the conditions of approval. So items such as fire access, those items were all covered. So let's see, yeah, the covered patio as well. So the covered patio, that's the only outdoor space that the proposed project would be, that the owners would be able to use on this proposed project. We are calling for the rest of the slope to remain undisturbed, and that would be a city requirement as well, or they would prefer that the slope remain undisturbed. So I believe Shogig actually inserted a condition there that this covered patio cannot be converted into livable space later, and we are totally cool with that, totally understandable. Owners have no intention of doing so. And then, let's see, I think that covered most of it. If you have any questions, I will answer them as well.
Okay, all right.
Oh, wait, one neighbor.
Sure.
One neighbor was confused about the 15-foot driveway and the 3-foot. So
Right.
Yeah. So, Shogi, is it okay if you pull up that page again?
Presentation?
Yes. I think it's a little easier with the drawing. There we go. Okay, this one. So the 15-foot is measured from the front property line, which is this. No, okay, this is very twitchy. This line right here. So that is the front property line, and we have a 15-foot setback over here. The curb itself is 3 feet away from the property line. So when we built this driveway, we have to improve this section in between the curb and the front property line. So in effect, this driveway actually will be 18 feet from the street. It just won't be 18 feet from the front property line because the front property line is not where the curb is. Hopefully that clarifies. Yeah.
Well, and typically, the city's requirement is that the private driveway be entirely on private property, and so that's why.
That's correct, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
mean, if it's a new development, that would be the case. It's just for existing non-conforming parcels, this is actually a pretty common occurrence.
Okay. So I think it was mentioned in the staff report. I just want to confirm. Both of the adjacent lots to the subject lot are substandard in size and already developed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does the project comply with all the other development standards, absent driveway length, absent lot size, and then absent one other thing that I'm going to mention?
It should, yeah, otherwise Shogi would have definitely brought it up. to me.
Okay.
Yeah, we worked pretty extensively on making this
Okay.
work.
In reviewing the project, actually, Shogi, if you could I guess, pull up the site plan again. There is one thing that I noticed in reviewing this. The city has a requirement to separate the driveway from the walkway, and currently it looks like
Yeah,
that whole area is paved.
it reads as one big bridge right now. During design review, we're gonna have to provide some kind of more dedicated separation for the pedestrian access and the vehicular access. But right
Okay.
now, it's, like Shogi mentioned, for the purposes of this hearing, it's mainly conceptual. There's no way that you can access the street to the front door without having some kind of bridge. So, whether that becomes separated later, where there's a smaller pedestrian bridge and a vehicular one, or, like a change in material, that's something that we would have to deal with later.
Okay. No sidewalk on the street, correct?
No sidewalk.
So the neighborhood does have a number of substantial or substandard driveway lengths. Have there been concerns from fire and police or other agencies with problems in this area regarding, these lack of this
When
lack
we
of
went
depth?
through the fire preliminary review, their primary concerns were with the overall fire access and the hydrants. I don't know if they actually went out to the property, but
Did you just say hydrants?
fire hydrants,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So one of their concerns was the fire hydrant, which is further up there. So the distance is actually okay. And, when reviewing, I'm sure they went off of the plans, and this is the surveyed map here. So this court here is existing non-conforming. It's going to be a little bit bigger, but it's not a straight one-way street where you do have to straight back out. Well, not legally at least. I mean, with the cars parked here, then yeah, it does become like a one-way street that becomes hard to three-point turn. But those cars aren't supposed to be there in the first place. So when fire reviewed it, they took that into account. And I think that's one of the reasons why Public Works identified this section here to be a tow-away parking zone, because they wanted to ensure that this court was left fairly open for emergency access.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Kiesel,
yes.
just to clarify, I know the fire department did not provide specific comments, but
Right.
in speaking with them afterwards,
Right.
they did indicate that during plan check, they would typically come up with conditions and requirements for the project.
So they haven't necessarily looked into,
Basically, anything
the
right now
whole
is like-
situation of parking in the cul-de-sac and access and emergencies and everything else.
Their position is that they didn't have specific conditions, requirements for this specific variance for lot size or driveway length, because it's already subdivided and developed neighborhood.
Okay.
If it were a new subdivision, they would have made some comments, but at this point, because it's a developed neighborhood or street, they didn't have particular
Okay,
comments.
okay,
But
I
they will
get that.
during the plan check permitting process.
Okay. So I think, and maybe you can answer this, in the staff report, it describes how an 18-foot driveway would require a bridge design, which would be in opposition to the topography of the site. Can you go into that more? Is the driveway sort of a bridge now?
It is a
just becomes
bridge
a
now.
longer bridge?
It would become longer, yes.
And that
Usually,
makes sense because it's going,
yeah, deeper into the
okay.
property. So that would be this guy here, this bridge here. So generally, the spans for these kind of bridges, you usually don't want to exceed like 18 to 20-ish feet, you're going to have to start, your members have to start getting increasingly thicker, which is not really a huge deal because it's just open space below here. But our primary issue was that we didn't want to, we didn't want to push this garage further out here. So as I mentioned.
And why not?
Because it would obstruct the view of the northern neighbor. So the view is kind of like down canyon is this direction here, or I just heard someone say it's not. So I mean it's definitely out this direction here. So this garage is at its required size here for required parking. We already compressed it. I mean, if we're seeking this 15-foot driveway variance to reduce the impact on the neighbors. I mean, for us to actually increase it to 18 feet, it is in theory doable. It just doesn't really make sense to do so. But yeah, that's, I mean, one of our primary reasons is that we just didn't want to push the massing further out here.
Okay. And then can you talk about the topography a bit in terms of how would what you're doing be more in opposition to the topography than what you're proposing now if you
Pushed it
back from Fullbrook?
Right. So the garage wall, it doesn't perfectly line up with this guy here, but you can just kind of look at this as diagrammatically. If we had to push this out further, this block would come out here this way, and you get more of a two-story wall as viewed from the bottom of Linda Vista. The overall massing would be larger in general. It's doable. It's just when we're cutting and filling, we want to balance out the pad as much as possible. So when we have it lined up like this, you don't have the jarring jogs in the grade and the what's readable from the bottom. At one point, we did consider kind of just leaving this bottom part open and just having like, you've probably seen it before, but you can call it like stilts or something like that. But if you imagine that and the garage were pushed 3 feet further out, then the stilts would be longer, right? So same concept here. You get more of a wall that would be in your face if we were to push it out further.
Is the house already cantilevered out a bit? Is that what I'm seeing?
There are no cantilevers.
Okay, then that's not what I'm seeing. Okay.
No cantilevers.
There's no cantilevers.
Yeah, no cantilevers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the house goes.
Street is on this side.
Yeah.
You come in, you step down about 30 inches, which is what Public Works recommended as well.
Yeah.
Into the house, so it's set into the property. We wanted to reduce the overall height in general to cut on massing. So from the street, from one of the earlier diagrams, the massing from the street is actually very minimal. It's it's lower than an ADU. So. The height from here, the actual height, is a two-story house. But because we're building downward as opposed to going upward, the overall massing from the court reads as something very small.
But I'm talking about the other side of the house.
Other side.
I mean, to me, it looks like toward Linda Vista. It looks to me from here that there's a portion of the house that cantilevers. And you're saying it goes all the way down to the new grade, correct?
It goes down to grade, yeah. It doesn't cantilever. It goes straight down to grade.
Okay. That covered patio on the lower level,
Yes.
is that the minimum?
It is a
minimum you need for structural purposes in terms of enclosure?
That's exactly what it is, yeah. So this is a direct footprint of the garage above.
Right.
So it's no bigger, no smaller. So and it serves as like I mentioned, the only outdoor space for this house in the future. But yeah, it's purely for structural reasons because you're going to have columns that are going to be at these corners here, and you're going to have shear walls at some point. Probably going to be like 2 or 3 foot wings off each corner. But yeah, it's purely just to hold up the weight of the cars.
And you can't reduce that anymore.
We cannot. No, I mean, not unless we just close off the door and just have the garage floating, which, you know, if we wanted, we're okay with doing that too. If that's what the city prefers, we can just close that entirely off. It's just going to look a little funny because you're going to have a floating box for the garage.
Well, you couldn't do that based on our code anyway.
Right.
I
Yeah,
just,
yeah, exactly.
in looking at the elevations, I mean, my question is, it's fairly enclosed now, although there's an opening. I'm wondering whether you can make it even less enclosed
I mean,
than
right
it
now,
is now.
yeah. Right now, the only wall that's required is this back one here.
Right.
So we're calling for this to be open and this to be open. So both sides here have guardrails.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't just put simple posts there
You cannot put simple posts.
because you're saying of structural reasons.
Yeah, you're not going to get the.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get shear walls in there. Even if you use strong walls, which are like really expensive, but we use them all the time.
Yeah.
The minimum width is still like a 2 or 3 foot panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got that covered. What's the maximum depth of the driveway?
Maximum depth of the driveway.
So at the
Sorry.
closest part to the front door, what's that length?
This here is about 18-ish feet, 18 to 20-ish feet here.
And does that include the sort of the right-of-way? that you can't
No,
officially-
that does not include the right-of-way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the dashed line here is the line of 15 feet because the front yard setback is curved, so it's projected at,
Yeah.
at an angle here.
Okay.
So at the furthest point here, it's about 18 to 20 feet.
Okay, all right. Have you had a chance to read the conditions?
Yes. Most of them are standard. I think the main one from planning was in regards to the covered patio.
And do you have any concerns with them?
No, they're all perfectly fine. It's all stuff that we kind of assumed would be included anyway.
Okay.
I think there's two items on the public works side. So traffic mitigation plan, you know, we do that for all hillside properties. And I think there was, street use as well. That's also standard for all hillside properties.
Okay. Final sort of comment, at least I believe. So all the neighbors mentioned they would be more open to constructing the house basically with access from Linda Vista. And earlier you said that was impossible, that you can't do that because H/2. I'm not an engineer or a building and safety person, but did you talk with our city engineering or building and safety?
So, yeah, so
to-
that actually
hold
did
on,
come.
Hold on,
oh,
hold
sorry,
on.
sorry.
That's all right. To come to that assertion, it may be more expensive. It may require more grading. It may do a bunch of things, but at least from my impression, you said it was impossible or cannot. And if I heard it wrong, let me know. But I wanted to get some feedback on that from you.
I wouldn't say it's like 100% impossible. It's just, and a lot of people, even like people that do what I do, a lot of them don't do hillside projects because of H/2. They don't take on hillside projects because it's just ridiculously difficult with these new standards. Which, it's also understandable because the intention is to prevent landslides in general and surcharging of properties below, lower, et cetera. In this particular case, the building actually did make comments on the first or second round of the review.
Building and safety, our building, okay.
Yes, your building and safety, in regards to H/2. So there is actually a diagram in there that they have that roughly indicates what kind of the difficulties would be. Because, if it's just like a costing, I'm not the one paying for it, the owners are. I would still tell them, just build it off Linda Vista. It's like, it makes my job way easier too, because I don't like coming to these hearings, getting harpooned. So it would have been easier. That was literally my first recommendation to the owners. It's just as we looked into it, I told them to get the survey. Once they got the survey, we were doing the calcs, doing the site sections. It was just ridiculously difficult, borderline impossible, unless we could somehow increase grading limits of some sort, or provide some kind of crazy shoring. But you're gonna have just to do, even if it were allowed, the shoring for this kind of project is you would basically have to crane or helicopter in steel I-beams that go down, and then you put the shoring boards up so that you can do construction on a hillside like this. This is that cliff on the bottom there. I've done it once before in Newport Beach. Those are pretty gnarly. If this were the same grade that went all the way down, then it might be more doable. The issue is that right here, there is that cliff, right over here.
Right, along Linda Vista,
Yeah. There's a big cliff that drops
subject
off.
property is steeper or much steeper than,
Yeah, and you can't just look at it just from here as well, because from this property line, we still have to leave 15 feet of front yard setback. So if we leave that 15 feet of front yard setback in here, this is like 20 feet of soil right here because of that cliff. You're never going to be able to comply with H/2. Not unless you, somehow completely terraform the entire site or something, and then maybe have.
what's terraform?
Just like, it's kind of like a joke, but unless you just completely redo the slopage of the site with 8 tiers of retaining walls or something at the top, but I'm 100% sure the city would not be cool with that.
Well, 8 retaining walls, no.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Because, the max height
I'm trying to gauge,
I know, balancing the pros and cons of each, I understand.
but I'm
yeah.
also trying to gauge, is it impossible? Is it just very expensive? Is it,
Theory, probably everything is really possible if you have enough money. But there are also practical limits, and also discretionary limits, right? So if you wanted to break up, you can't have one retaining wall that's super high for a location like this, right? You would have to tier it. So if you were to tier the retaining walls, each one's probably about 7 to 8 feet high. There's so much soil here, especially once you come in from there. You have to terrace probably 6 to 8 levels of soil, and that's going to be very visible from Linda Vista Road. You can landscape it all you want, but you're still going to have concrete walls there that show the terracing of the retaining walls. And generally, it's doable. And if practically speaking, it's probably doable. But on the discretionary level, it's probably not something that neighbors or the city would want.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just make sure I don't have any more questions. I think that was it. So I'm going to close the public hearing.
Are we allowed to?
No. Mhm. Nope. No rebuttal of the rebuttal.
Question?
Um,
According to just your last question to him? It's HR 2, right, or HN 2, how do you say it?
It's H over 2.
Mr. Kiesel, she needs to come to the
Yeah,
podium
that's
if we
true.
need
I'm
to.
sorry. I'll give you 1 minute.
I'll just 1 minute.
You need to come up here.
He said H.
Would it be all right if we be the 1 minute?
Oh, yes, you'll be the 1 minute. I'm sorry. Ask him about
Just get going. Come on.
The question,
He was gonna use on the Mexico.
okay, I just want to briefly say.
1 minute.
Yeah, the garage provides 2 enclosed parking spaces, so the parking requirement is met, right? Enclosed garage space does not guarantee reduced on-street parking. In many hillside neighborhoods, garages are used for storage or too tight for daily parking use. And if a car can't reliably fit in the driveway, or if they're hanging out of the cul-de-sac, you know where it ends up? It ends up on the already narrow, overcrowded cul-de-sac. So we're talking about putting more cars in there. The other thing one thing I want to ask him, what's the Gemsburg company?
Mr. Kiesel,
We can't have
continue.
cross communications.
Okay, well, just want to briefly say, he said they're not developers, but this couple does have a website where they market themselves as developers, real estate agents, construction managers. And they have a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page, where they say they run it. It's their names at the email addresses for all the things. I think he said they don't have a child. They do. They came to our house. Yeah, and we showed them the view from our window that they would be blocking, and they
Okay.
did not act in good faith. So, yeah,
All
just,
right.
that's it.
You know, I'll just clarify, this variance hearing is for driveway depth and lot area. I don't deal with views. The design review board will deal with views if in fact the variances are approved and they proceed. So just be clear on that. All right, I'm going to close the public.
Mr. Kiesel, just
Yes.
one more. I don't have any callers on the line, so I
Thank
just
you,
wanted
yes.
to mention
It's
that.
been a long morning.
Yes,
So I'm going
thank
to
you.
close the public hearing. I am going to take this under submission, and when a decision is rendered, everybody in the room is going to get the decision in writing, and we'll go from there. All right? Thank you. And I'm just going to adjourn the hearing now. Thank you. Or the meeting.